The Galactic Council chamber pulsed with ambient light from the twin moons of Aurelia Prime, casting a pale glow across the gathered delegates. Over 200 species were represented: winged beings, silicon-based intellects, shape-shifting anomalies, but all turned their attention to the speaker from Avon Dominion. The Vaughn were warlike and blunt, their representative, High Executor Sholtar, towering above the others in a suit of bone armor lacquered with the blood of fallen enemies. "We have wasted enough cycles on this," he growled, voice amplified through a neural modulator. "The Terrans do not contribute. They observe. They calculate. They hide. A species that cannot defend its sovereignty has no place in the circle of guardians. They are cowards." There was a low ripple of assent from some of the elder races. The Lumeri sang a chorus of neutral tones, neither agreeing nor protesting, while the insectoid krill clicked their mandibles in approval. Only a few murmurs of defense rose, quickly silenced by the mounting consensus. Ambassador Alara Miles, Earth's lone voice in the chamber, stood motionless. Her breath was steady, but her eyes blazed with the weight of humiliation. She had known this was coming. For years, Earth had refused to engage in the Council's war games, preferring diplomacy, economic exchanges, and cultural outreach. But hey, peace was not a virtue. It was seen as weakness. Sholtar concluded, "Let the record show. Humanity is hereby classified as a non-militant auxiliary species. Not worthy of command. Not worthy of Fae." The gavel, carved from a neutron star shard, slammed against the obsidian dais. The judgment was sealed. The footage played on every screen across Earth. Talk show hosts raged. Net influencers dissected the Council's words frame by frame. Hashtags like #NotCowards and #SendThem1 surged through the global net. Protesters stood outside the United Nations Defense Dome, demanding action. But the world government did not act rashly. Earth's resources were modest by galactic standards. An open war was suicide. Still, something had to be done. Pride demanded it. In a sealed meeting buried beneath Iceland's basalt cliffs, the Earth Defense Coalition convened. "We need a symbol," said General Vaga, his voice dry with age and gravitas. "Not an army. Just one. One human who can walk into their arena and make them doubt everything they think they know about us." Murmurs of confusion filled the chamber. "One human? Do you know what the Vaughn are preparing?" someone asked. "Their gauntlet is a death trap. Genetic war beasts, hive minds, psionic freaks." Vaga nodded. "Exactly why we won't send a diplomat. We send a weapon." A silence fell before someone muttered, "Then it has to be him." Commander Jack Rains was 57, though his face bore the stories of a man who had outlived battles, betrayals, and broken commands. He lived in solitude in the Alaskan wilderness, where the air was clean, the silence unbroken, and the memories of war didn't whisper quite so loud. His cabin was functional, wood-burning stove, tactical gear collecting dust, a rifle propped against the wall like a loyal dog waiting for its master. The knock came at dawn. Rains opened the door shirtless, steam rising off his skin as if he'd just stepped out of a war zone rather than a shower. Two officials stood outside, flanked by silent security drones. "I told you people to stop finding me," he said flatly. General Vaga stepped forward. "We need a demonstration of strength." "Then you're screwed," Rains said, stepping back and motioning to the wilds around them. "You see an army out here?" "Not an army," Vaga replied. "Just you." Rains didn't laugh. He poured himself black coffee from a dented kettle, added no sugar, and Saturday. His silence was his permission to continue. Vaga explained the Council's verdict. "The insult. The gauntlet. You want me to fight in a glorified alien circus to restore national pride. Not national. Human." Rain stayed into his cup like it held something deeper than caffeine. His hands were calloused, scarred. The left thumb was artificial, a reminder of a mission gone sideways in Jakarta. He thought of the look in the eyes of the enemy soldiers he had killed. Not hatred, not even fear, just understanding. Warriors recognized each other. "I've buried a lot of men for causes that didn't survive the decade," he said quietly. "This one will," Vargas said, "because it's not a cause. It's a message." Rains finished the coffee. One condition, he said. I go alone. No cameras. No oversight. No puppet strings. You'll have it. As they left, Vaga paused at the edge of the clearing. What are you going to do to prepare? Rains didn't turn around. Remind myself who I used to be. That night, as the wind screamed across the ridges, Rains stood alone in the snow, shirt off, skin turning red with cold. He stared into the trees like they were old enemies. His breath came slow, measured, his mind empty, save for instinct. He dropped to the ground and began to move. Push-ups, sit-ups, combat flows, blindfolded strikes against wooden poles. Hours passed. The forest bore witness to something ancient being reawakened. He was no longer a man hiding from ghosts. He was a ghost himself, rising for one last fight. Far above, aboard the orbiting diplomatic station, the Council began preparations for the Gauntlet of Worlds. The Vaughn representative scoffed when Earth's entry request came through. One human, he sneered. But the form was stamped. Accepted. The arena would soon taste blood, and the galaxy would learn that it was not strength, but resolve, that made humanity dangerous. The air aboard the transport shuttle was thin and metallic, humming with the silent judgment of its non-human crew. Jack Rains sat alone in the passenger bay, wrists resting on his knees, eyes locked on the matte black floor. No weapons, no armor, just the issued combat suit provided by the Council, durable, sleek, and utterly alien. He hated it already. An automated voice, soft and genderless, buzzed through the comm system. Final descent to the Gauntlet of Worlds. Prepare for immediate atmospheric entry. The other passengers, champions from dozens of species, each bristled with unique armor, implants, and ceremonial regalia. Rains didn't speak. He didn't need to. Let them underestimate him. Let them believe the narrative. That humans were weak. That he was just another symbolic gesture from a backwater planet. The shuttle docked with a hiss, airlocks engaging with sterile precision. The ramp dropped into a coliseum carved into the heart of an asteroid. Thousands watched from above, seated in floating rings that hovered with anti-grave hums. Their cheers were less for celebration, more for bloodlust. A booming voice filled the arena, translated simultaneously into every known language. Contestants, you enter not as emissaries of your kind, but as blades. Only the sharpest will leave. Rains exhaled once and stepped into the light. The first trial was waiting. The beast of Titanus emerged with a thunderous roar, its form massive and shifting, genetically engineered muscle bulging under armored plates, eyes glowing a predatory blue. It moved on 4 legs, each limb ending in claws that could shear metal. Other species took a step back. Rains did not. The announcer's voice rattled the very stone. You may select your weapons from the arena cache. Begin. Competitors rushed to the scattered weapon vaults embedded in the walls. Plasma rifles, energy spears, grave hammers. Rains moved differently. While others scrambled for strength, he crouched beside a shattered pillar, studying the beast's gait, the slowness of its right foreleg. Favoring an old injury or weak design, the beast charged, and one of the larger reptilian warriors moved to intercept. It lasted 7 seconds. The scream ended abruptly, body flung across the sand, cleaved in half. Rains moved, not toward the weapons, but toward debris. His fingers closed around a length of shattered alloy and a broken energy cell, eyes already mapping a plan. As the beast tore through its second victim, Rains dashed forward, unarmed, sliding beneath the Titanus belly. He jammed the alloy shard into the exposed joint near the back leg, the movement surgical. The creature roared, staggering. The crowd gasped. Rains darted to the left vault, scavenging what he needed. Nothing heavy, nothing loud. A monofilament wire, a depleted plasma knife, and a strip of detonation gel. Enough. While the others focused on brute force, Rains vanished into shadow, using the wreckage as cover. He looped the wire across a fallen column, anchoring at waist height, just behind the beast's path. Then he baited it. One precise whistle, a flash of motion. The Titanus charged. The wire held. Momentum did the rest. The beast flipped mid-run, its own weight tearing muscle and spine as it crashed into the ground with a sickening crunch. Before it could recover, Rains was already moving, sliding beneath the heaving body, pressing the detonation gel into the breathing gills beneath its armored chest. He whispered something the cameras didn't catch. Then he rolled clay. The explosion was brief, contained, but fatal. The Titanus spasmed once, then lay still. Silence. And then, chaos. The crowd screamed in disbelief. Rains stewed, blood on his face, breathing calm. A warrior from the crystalline Threx bowed toward him, a gesture of respect. Others looked away. The council reviewed the footage immediately, analyzing the data. No cheating, no enhancements, just a human who didn't follow the rules of the spectacle. They moved him forward. Trial 2. The mental duel. The chamber was cold, circular, lined with neural amplifiers. His opponent was a scion from the Storie. No physical form, just a shimmering cluster of energy encased in a light field shell. Rains was instructed to sit in the center. He did. A technician slid the neural interface over his skull, thin as silk but heavy with implications. The Storie floated across from him. Initiating mind link, the system AI said. Brace for mental intrusion. Darkness. And then chaos. He was falling through memories, some real, some not. Flashbacks of war, missions turned to nightmares, the screams of allies. The Storie twisted his mind, surfacing every failure, every buried guilt. But Rains had lived with demons longer than most beings had lived at all. Instead of resisting, he opened the door. The Storie faltered. Instead of breaking the human, it drowned in his memories, losses layered with discipline, pain layered with purpose. The sheer weight of human experience, chaotic yet centered, hit the scion like a weapon. Rains gripped the neural link with both hands and pulled. The Storie shrieked, not with sound, but with fractured thought. Moments later, its light dimmed. It withdrew, scattered. The AI declared the human victor. Back in his body, Rains leaned forward, sweating but composed. Tell the next one to bring something real, he muttered. Trial 3 came sooner than expected. A team-based conflict. Warriors from the Zon Dominion, augmented, armored, elite. 5 of them. Rains stood alone, again. The arena was a ruined temple, high towers, broken bridges, collapsing platforms. Perfect. They mocked him over the comms, boasting of the kill. He said nothing. They split up to surround him. That was their mistake. Rains vanished into the structure, silent as breath. He waited, watched, set traps using debris, created sound loops with discarded speakers, funneled them toward kill zones. The first fell to a collapsed floor panel rigged with pressurized gas. The second was caught by a garrote hidden in a vine. The third and fourth fought back, forcing Rains into a brutal knife duel. He took hits, broken rib, torn shoulder, but he didn't stop. Every movement was surgical, every strike final. The last warrior panicked. Rains let him. He chased him into a trap, a corner with no roof, just sky, and a 60-foot drop. The Zon hesitated. Rains charged. Both fell, but only Rains had planned for the grab ledge. The crowd roared as he hauled himself up, bleeding, breath ragged, but still standing. The council issued no praise, no applause, but their silence held a different note now. Something like fear. The final trial was not announced. There were no lights, no opening declaration, no crowd. Jack Rains woke alone in a featureless chamber with smooth black walls that absorbed both light and sound. His wounds had been tended to, but not fully healed. The council wanted authenticity, pain, fatigue, doubt. They wanted him raw. A single door slid open. No instructions, no explanation. He stepped through. Beyond the threshold was an artificial terrain, harsh, desolate, designed to resemble a pre-contact Earth battlefield. Bombed-out structures, fractured stone, shattered glass glittering in the dying light of a false sun. Rains scanned the area, heart steady, mind already calculating angles, shadows, cover points. Then he saw them. 10 figures stood waiting across the ruined courtyard. They wore no armor, no insignias, just uniforms, human uniforms. But wrong. Too perfect. Too synchronized. They moved like dancers, not soldiers. Rains narrowed his eyes. Clones. The council had crafted his final trial from data, simulated his tactics, his reflexes, his decision trees. These weren't just lookalikes. They were engineered versions of himself, faster, younger, mathematically optimized. It wasn't a battle. It was a judgment. He ducked behind a rusted vehicle shell just as plasma cut the air above. The clones didn't hesitate. They advanced in a coordinated pattern, each playing a role he recognized. One flanked wide. Two moved in a pincer. Another climbed for elevation. They were executing a textbook sweep, his textbook. They knew him, but they weren't him. He moved low, quiet, baiting them into cover fire. As one clone fired from the high ground, Rains threw a chunk of broken concrete as a decoy. The clone shifted to track it. Predictable. Rains emerged from the blind spot and fired a scavenged bolt pistol into the elevated sniper's chest. One down. He took the weapon, rolled into cover, and kept moving. They adapted. Each kill made them smarter. Their formations changed. The next engagement came in a narrow alley where two clones forced him into close-quarters combat. Their movements were flawless, like mirrors. Rains took hits, elbow to the jaw, a slash across his ribs, but he turned pain into momentum. He drove one clone into a wall and crushed its throat with a scavenged pipe. The others staggered as Rains shoved a shot of rebuy through its thigh and kicked it into a live energy field pulsing through the ground. He didn't celebrate. Every second they bought was used against him. The remaining clones adjusted again. They began using misdirection, his own tactics re-engineered. One lured him into a warehouse with the sound of coughing. Another mimicked the exact staggered limp Rains had been faking, drawing him close for a feigned weakness and ambush. He barely survived. He found a moment of quiet in a collapsed stairwell, patching a gash on his shoulder with thermal tape, mind racing. He had to stop thinking like a soldier. They could predict a soldier. He needed to become something else. Unpredictable. He set traps that didn't make sense. Tripwires leading to nowhere. Explosive charges on top of note devices. Sound loops that mimicked enemy comms. He started speaking aloud in different languages, creating the illusion of backup. Confused, the clones split further. One by one, he took them down. 4 left. Then 3. Then 2. The second-to-last clone managed to stab him just below the rib. Rains didn't scream. He gritted his teeth, twisted the blade out of his side, and drove it into the clone's neck. Blood sprayed, thick and dark. He barely stood. The last one waited. Not in ambush. Not behind cover. It stood in the open. Silent. Watching. Rains limped forward, knife loose in hand. The final clone looked exactly like him. Not younger. Not idealized. It was built in his image now. Scar for scar. Wound for wound. It tilted its head, as if curious. Why? Rains muttered. The clone said nothing. Then it dropped its weapon. A choice. He hesitated. This wasn't a test of combat. It was something deeper. The clone stepped forward and offered its hand. Rains stared. Was this the final move? A psychological trap? Or something more? He remembered what Varga had said. This isn't about pride. It's a message. Humanity didn't just fight. It chose. Rains reached out. The clone's grip was strong, solid, and then he pulled it into a headbutt, spinning and driving it to the ground. His knee crushed the clone's chest. It tried to speak, but he silenced it with a single blow to the temple. He stewed over the body, chest heaving. "I am the message," he whispered. Lights flared above. The arena dissolved. Illusion peeled away. He was back in the council chamber. But this time, he stood at the center. Alone. Alive. Sholtar rose slowly, silent. The Von warlord who once laughed at the notion of human strength now stared with cold, reluctant acknowledgement. Ambassador Alara Miles stepped forward, voice calm. Will the council revise its judgment? The silence dragged. Then the elder being of the Krill, its mandibles slow, voice like grinding stone, spoke. Humanity is not cowardly. It is calculated and deeply dangerous. One by one, the representatives stood, not to challenge, to confirm. A new designation was etched into the galactic records that day. Humanity, Strategic Apex Class. A single man had changed the galaxy's understanding, and he had done it alone. The transport ship drifted silently through the void, far beyond the reach of the Council's observation stations. Jack Raines sat in the crew lounge, armor peeled back, bandages stained with the memory of trials past. The silence wasn't peace, it was aftermath. He sipped bitter nutrient fluid, the taste indistinguishable from engine oil, and stared at the stars outside the viewport. For the first time in weeks, no one was watching. Across from him sat Ilara Miles, human ambassador to the Galactic Council. Her suit was pristine, her posture straight, but there was a tightness in her jaw, the kind that only came from too many diplomatic games and too little honesty. She tapped her fingers against the armrest, waiting for him to speak first. "You don't have to stay quiet now," she said finally. "You did what we sent you to do." "No," Raines replied, setting the cup down with a dull thud. "I did what I had to, what they needed to see." Ilara's expression shifted. "And what do you need, Jack?" He didn't answer. Not right away. There was no point in pretending this was over. Recognition was never the end. It was only a recalibration of threat levels. Now, humanity wasn't dismissed. It was categorized, filed away in military intelligence reports across 100 worlds. Raines had turned the tide of perception, but at what cost? "They'll be watching now," he said. "Studying us. Preparing countermeasures." "They already were," Ilara said. "They just weren't honest about it." A notification ping echoed softly through the lounge. "Council Priority Communique." Ilara opened the file with a gesture. Her eyes flicked across the encrypted message, brow furrowing as she read. Then she looked up, grim. "They're requesting a demonstration," she said. "A joint operation. Council fleet, Von Raiders, and one human strategist. Immediate deployment." Raines scoffed. "Let me guess. I'm the strategist." "You're the symbol," Ilara said. "The proof. And now they want to see if your kind can integrate. Lead." "It's a trap," Raines said flatly. "They're testing limits, not building trust." She didn't deny it. Still, the mission details streamed across the holo display. A piracy corridor near the Shadrach Expanse, lightly monitored, heavy civilian losses reported. Council fleets too fragmented to respond in time. The implication was clear. They needed him to clean up what they couldn't handle. Or wouldn't. "This is how it starts," Raines muttered. "We go from curiosity to weapon. From test case to solution." "You knew that going in." He nodded. He had. But it was different now, with blood still under his nails and phantom pain lingering in his side. He remembered the faces of the clones, reflections of himself, stripped of soul and turned into tactics. If the Council ever built an army like that, "Give me a squad," he said. "No more than 5. I'll pick them myself. No diplomats. No observers." Ilara hesitated. "The Council." "The Council can choose the theater. I choose the unit." She considered, then gave a slow nod. "I'll authorize it." Later, in the armory, Raines stood before a sealed case. Inside was a relic from Earth, his personal combat rig, still bearing marks from the Battle of Cordova Ridge. Council techs had cleaned it, sterilized it, but the weight was the same. He slid into it like muscle memory. As the pieces locked into place, the air shifted. He was no longer the curiosity. He was the weapon. His squad assembled in the launch bay. 2 former Black Ops soldiers, 1 cybernetic engineer with guerrilla field experience, and a quiet, wiry scout from the outer colonies who barely spoke. None asked questions. They didn't need to. They'd all read the brief. They'd all seen the footage. Their leader was the man who had taken on an empire's doubts and won. On the edge of the Shadrach Expanse, the enemy fleet was already mobilizing. Von Raiders, pirated council vessels, mercenaries. It wasn't a skirmish. It was a statement. The council hadn't intervened yet. They were watching. Again, Rain studied the enemy formations, paused patterns, predicted weaknesses. But this time, he didn't act alone. His orders came quiet, precise. The squad moved like an extension of his will, invisible until it was too late. They boarded the lead cruiser using a slingshot maneuver through debris clouds. No alarms triggered. No external response. Rains led from the front, knife and silence his only companions. One by one, they cut the head off the fleet. The final room held the Vaughn commander, 7 feet tall, armored in bone and steel, weapon raised. Rains didn't flinch. "You're the one they talk about," the Vaughn growled. "No," Rains said. "I'm just the one they sent." He moved first. It was over in 13 seconds. As they exited the vessel, the Council fleet arrived, late on purpose, just in time to witness the aftermath. A dozen pirate ships disabled. 2 captured. 0 casualties on Rains's team. Alara's voice came through the comms. "They've seen enough." Rains didn't respond. He was already walking away from the wreckage, back to the extraction point, smoke rising in spirals behind him. Far above, in the council chambers, the data poured in. Every move, every tactic, every choice, and every species with eyes to see understood one thing. Humanity was no longer an afterthought. It was a variable they hadn't planned for. And Jack Rains was only the beginning.